Mr. KP Oli. He might be angry when I put this fact in public, but I don't care. Ratification of the MCC agreement, it is ridiculous when the MCC project was very much debated in public, but in the House of Representatives, no member of parliament was allowed to speak. I asked the then House Speaker, Agni Sapkota, to give me time. He restricted me within 5 minutes. You see? A member of parliament was not allowed to speak at length. But anyway, I presented my opinion in writing due to the time constraint. And the members from the UML, led by Mr. KP Oli, was making loud noise, chanting slogans for the resignation of the House Speaker. But what happened? After 3 days of the ratification of the agreement, they withdrew from the demand. What was the intention? Intention was Mr. Deva and his allies in the government were ready to ratify on behalf of the state, and KP Oli was creating the environment. That was the situation. Now you can see the guidance of the Constitution of Nepal. As I already stated, the provisions of Constitution of Nepal strongly restrict to enter into any sorts of security alliance. The article of the Constitution 51D clearly stipulates Nepal will not enter into such agreement pursuing the policy and principles of UN Charter, non-alignment, world peace, and above all, national interest of Nepal. And all unequal treaties will be looked into and corrected. What happened? Neither about two-third majority of the Nepal Communist Party nor other political parties, they entered into the provision of the Constitution. Acceptance of foreign loans and grants. Also, there is clear provision in the Constitution of Nepal, strictly follow to develop national economy and to take international loan and grant only to those areas of national priority. What happened to MCC? Loans and grant received from any country should not harm the interest, freedom, independence, law, and the dignity of Nepal. Isn't it? We are not opposing any country, including US. What would happen if the US had to sign such agreement, taking some grant or loans from China, Japan, or India? What would happen? This is the point. Conclusion of treaties and agreement based on equality and mutual interest. As I said, previously I mentioned Article 51M, 2. Budget and expenditure. Look into the budget. Now, the total budget is 747 million, Nepalese rupees 1 trillion 2 billion. If you classify it, if you divide it, a huge amount goes to administration, and the headquarters is in the 5-star hotel. If it was really for the Nepali people, why this office is not inside the ministry? It is astonishing. Even the US advisors are allowed to sign in the checks. What is this? MCA Nepal completely under MCC. Even the government cannot direct, suggest any policy and supervise the MCA Nepal. But they argue, well, the chair of the MCA Nepal is the secretary from the Ministry of Finance That's why it is under the Nepal government. It is ridiculous. You can see the budget division. Nepal is contributing 197 million, but in any agreement, including the main compact agreement, nothing is mentioned how the contribution of Nepal will be utilized. In case the project is not completed within 5 years, then there are so many clauses and provisions clearly state US will bring back his money. But what will happen to the so-called grant made by the Nepal government to the project? What would happen? Nothing. You see, estimated 110 million amount of MCC per year. It can be easily managed in the country. I can give you only one example. Nepal government has not been able to recover more than 75 billion rupees from a single NCL. More than 22 billion Nepalese rupees is due to recover from the big industrialist for the utilization of electricity. There are so many areas. 110 million means about 11 billion a year. It is not a big deal. But due to the selfish nature and behavior of the leaders and the prime ministers, this happened in Nepal. There are so many misleading provisions about the duration, time frame of the project itself. Though they say this is for the 5 years, but you can see many provisions which give sweeping powers to MCC, even to command and control the transmission line, the land utilized for transmission line and its infrastructure. It is indefinite. We can find many provisions contrary to the Nepali laws and vital interest. It is almost impossible to explain about all those provisions due to time constraints. You can see very quickly how many clauses are there. I am not speaking in empty. I can challenge any prime minister, any expert to discuss on the basis of these facts. It is not a matter of anger to any country, but it is a matter to safeguard our country, our people, our dignity, our sovereignty, and our independence, isn't it? This is what a patriotic citizen should think. It is unbelievable. US law, even future law, prevail over the laws of Nepal. I have given the articles and the facts. Can anyone challenge me? I have asked Prime Minister, then Prime Minister, and leaders of the political parties to come forward to discuss with me. But they never did that. Even in the parliamentary committees, they always try to evade to come up to talk about the facts, provisions, documents, agreements, and its serious negative implications on the long-run existence, dignity, independence of our beloved motherland. You see, even the cancellation, NCC can cancel any time, any moment, without any reason. But there is a clause, 30 minutes, giving 30 days notice, a country can cancel this project. If Nepal does so, then Nepal has to pay all compensations to the US. But if US does it, US does not have to do anything. That's why I call it unequal treaty. MCC-led project selection, I already put it. Selection of the project to the satisfaction of the MCC and consent of India. Think, can it happen in any sovereign, independent country of the world? Such thing can happen only colonized country. From the perspective of international law and our national law, you see. So, MCC will have subsequent control. Even there is not only compact agreement, but also there are several agreements made by MCA Nepal with several ministries and departments. Is MCA Nepal is a country which can compel to sign the ministry and departments to move ahead according to its guidance. What is this? MCC procure the materials, all materials, and such procurement cannot be made with such companies which have some contradiction with, okay. So, I have no time, I go very sweepingly. Okay, you can see, but I cannot explain now. Exclusively owns logo, as I said, provision of Nepal to get any money back, I already said. Then no parliamentary and administrative approval required. If MCA Nepal and the MCC, they change annexes, agreement provisions, they can do anytime, as they wish. MCA board is not independent. No provision of how to generate the electricity and what would happen to the transmission line. No. Okay. Project partner, not explained. Liability to Nepal, very huge. Staff, according to the wish and the guideline of the MCC. No, Nepal government has no role. Current and former employees of MCC are fully, they are immune, even if they commit act contrary to the law of Nepal. In every aspect, actions, MCC prior approval is needed. Illusory mobs for amendments. Sometimes the leaders of Nepal and the government, they try to cheat the Nepali people. I am sorry for using this word cheat. Why I am saying so? You see, correspondence was made with the MCC. Even Sher Bahadur Deva and Pushpamanta are present. They jointly wrote a letter to the US. Can it happen in another country? Or sitting prime minister and leader opposition, they wrote the letter to MCC to make happy the officials of the MCC. We don't know about the response. And so, you have heard about so-called interpretive declaration. They mention about the Vienna Convention on the treaty. As a student of law, I have read it several times. No Vienna Treaty Convention clauses are attracted to a unilateral interpretive declaration. It was completely illusory to make full public, to make it easier for ratification. The fact is like this. You see, our former Prime Minister Jallat Khanal is present here. I would like to mention it with heavy heart. A high-level task force, including myself, as I said, then Foreign Minister Pradeep Giwali, he was the convener. We studied all the documents and with hard work, we submitted the report. We had 2 chairs at that time. They thanked us, but they never allowed to discuss on our report in the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Nepal. This was the Communist Party. Ridiculous. Never. When the agenda was made, after 2 days, the parliament was dissolved. What was that? What was the conspiracy? That's why I said it illusory. Conclusion. Let me finish very quickly. The project grant is not unacceptable just because it was given by the US. It is because loans or assistance must be in accordance with the country's constitution, law, international law, norms and the country's independence and vital interest. India does so. China does so. Even the US does so. It doesn't mean that we are standing for the right and the dignity of our country. It does not mean that we are opposing any country, isn't it? So this is the issue. The Constitution of Nepal restricts, as I said, to enter into any treaty or agreement relating to security or military strategy. Nepal, according to the Constitution, has to adhere to the UN Charter. As I said, it is not necessary to explain again. Main MCC Compact Agreement and subsequent dozen agreements are not based on the principle of sovereign equality and respect Nepal's independence, national interest, rather loaded with US security strategy. US security reports and ministers have publicly stipulated, as I said, MCC as a part of the US Indo-Pacific strategy. I have to mention in this regard, when Mr. Gewali was the foreign minister, he went to the US and signed the State Partnership Agreement. I am with heavy heart when I knew and when I read 10 points of the unsigned agreement to make the military base Nepal for the US. So is this really a Communist Party and they are Communist leaders? Patriotics? I bet. Compromise on Nepal's independence, rights, law and foreign policy from Nepal and the Nepali people. Government and the major parties ignored widespread opposition to MCC project in public and in parliament in Nepal. Can a sovereign country thinks members of the parliament were not allowed to participate and debate on this very serious agreement when the process was going on for the ratification? It is ironic that some of the leaders, it is needless to mention the name, you know them. Leaders of the parties and the leadership of the government in Nepal do not seem paying due attention to country's interest and security. Finally, when I am speaking about the unequal provisions and the provisions detrimental to the national interest dignity of Nepal, I request all concerned to look into the facts and provision of the agreement, which will clearly show the fact MCC is an integral part of Indo-US security strategy. Nepal, if it has to survive, should not enter any kind of military-like or security strategy to respect its own constitution, to safeguard its national independence and dignity. Especially in this competitive world, when the big powers are competing in economic security field, not only in the earth, but in the space. Nepal has to be very cautious. And the patriotic people of Nepal should think about the future of Nepal, Nepal's security, Nepal's economic independence, Nepal's cultural independence to safeguard both its hard power and soft power. यति भन्दै अध्यक्ष महोदय फेरि आइसक्नुभयो। यहाँहरूले मेरो कुराहरू ध्यानपूर्वक सुनिदिनु भयो। For listening my presentation, I would like to sincerely thank all of you and also welcome our international participants. In this world, Nepal is looking forward to all those friends and well-wishers to contribute for the well-being of Nepal and the Nepali people. यति भन्दा अन्त्यमा म फेरि डाक्टर भुजू मेरो मित्रले मेरो बारेमा केही शब्दहरू सद्भावपूर्ण पृष्ठभूमिको स्मरण गराइदिनु भएकोमा उहाँलाई धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु र यो कार्यक्रममा मलाई फाउन्डेसन फर पिस डेभलपमेन्ट एन्ड सोशलिजम को तर्फबाट यी केही शब्दहरू नेपालले भोग्नु परेका कयौं असमान सन्धि सम्झौताहरूको श्रृङ्खलामा सबभन्दा पछिल्लो पटक दुःखका साथ नेपालले बेहोर्नु परेको एमसीसी प्रोजेक्ट एग्रिमेन्टको बारेमा केही तथ्यहरू राख्ने अवसर दिनुभएकोमा म पूर्व प्रधानमन्त्री कुनै बेला त्यही पार्टीको म जहाँ थिएँ अध्यक्ष कमरेड झलनाथ खनाल कमरेड भन्ने उहाँलाई मनपर्छ भनेर प्रयोग गरेका हुँ म उहाँलाई धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु र उहाँको संगठनलाई धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु विथ दिस वर्ड्स प्लिज अलाउ मी टु स्टप माई प्रेजेन्टेसन धन्यवाद नमस्कार